Hi, and you're very welcome to another episode, episode 5 of In Conversation with. My name is Jonny Cooper, and for the fifth week in a row, we're going to have two very special guests joining us in just a couple of moments' time to tell us all about their DCU journey and their DCU experience. As it is a postgraduate focus week, we're going to talk to students currently undertaking their postgraduate studies here in DCU. So that is coming up just very, very shortly. But before I do go over to Ciaran, our first guest today, I just want to tell you a little bit more about the couple of ways that you can find out more about the resources that we have on offer for prospective students. So if you go on to dcu.ie /CAO, what you will get is an opportunity to see all our different resources that we have available. So for example, you can go down and you can explore the virtual campus store. You can see our online perspectives. You can join in these conversations each week. You can get our live social media takeovers. You can get your webinars, and of course you can find out a lot more about our upcoming DCU virtual open days, which I'll talk a little bit more about later on. So that's just a reminder of some of the resources that are available. So we only have a half an hour conversation, and I do want to get into our first, because there's a couple of people watching, I do want to get into our first guest, which is Ciaran. So I'm going to pull Ciaran into the room, and hopefully, just like the technology, does a bit of magic and Ciaran will pop onto our screens. I can see you. I can't. Are you on mute? Unmuted. Are you there? Let me see. We'll try get asked to unmute. Can you do it now? There you go.
Yeah, how are you, Jonny?
I'm good. What's the story?
Not much. I'm just feeling a bit underdressed here.
You're feeling a bit underdressed, yeah. Well, I guess I'm an employee of DCU, so I have a bit of an obligation to make sure that I'm looking respectable. Firstly, I guess, and I know you've seen a few of these episodes, how are you keeping? How's the last couple of weeks been?
Grand, yeah. Just kind of, I mean, it's a hard time, but sure, I'm swamped with work, so I probably wouldn't be outside anyway. I'd be a hermit inside anyway, so it's not the worst for
Yeah,
me.
you're busy. So I
Exactly.
want to try cover a couple of different things today if we can, because the last couple of weeks we've spoken to a couple of student ambassadors from all different courses, and as I said, this week is a bit more of a focus on postgrad. But to give a bit of context into the postgrad currently where you are at the moment, maybe just retrace your steps a little bit. You did what in DCU, and then we might talk about the postgrad that you're currently in.
Yeah, so I did the bachelor's in marketing, innovation, and technology. So it was a 4-year degree. So I started back in 2016, and then I did 2 years of that. I did the 12-month inter-work placement in third year. I did that with ESB. Then I came back for final year, did that, and then I decided then that I would go on and do a master's, and here I am now. So it doesn't really feel like that long, but I suppose when I look back now, a lot has happened.
Just to remind people as well that are watching, there's a Q&A function on the screen, so they're anonymous questions. I won't read out your name. If you have a question as we're talking, pop it in there and I can ask Ciaran, or if it's for me, I can take it myself. So you did your MINT program. I just want to
Yes.
briefly touch on, if I could for a second, just the intra-workplace, and because as
Mhm.
the last couple of conversations have gone, we've talked about practical on campus versus off campus. Give us a sense of maybe the placement and then maybe the value for you anyway that you got from it.
Yeah, so I suppose the placement in and of itself is one of the reasons I actually did decide to study in DCU. I think it's really the thing that won me over in the first place. Um, it was a really great learning experience, and the fact that so it was meant to be 12 months, I stayed on then for 14. The fact that you even have that and that it is mandatory as part of your course, it just basically means that unlike a lot of other degrees, you don't have to sort of go out and contact companies yourself. Like they're looking for you, they're looking specifically for students from DCU. So it just makes it really easy in that sense, because you don't actually have to actively go out, go on LinkedIn, go onto all these job sites and just hope that they decide to create an internship program just for you. So these places, they already have internship programs set up, and like I said, it just makes it all that much easier. It was really valuable for me, just in the sense that not only do you get to apply what you are learning in class for 2 years into the real world, but also it just kind of helps with your personal development. I mean, it's going to be the first time for a lot of people that they're in sort of like a professional corporate environment, which presumably they will be in for the rest of their career, if especially if they're doing, say, the likes of a business degree like I am. So it kind of just gets you used to that office environment and sort of how to like even just be professional. I always say that the biggest thing I learned from my intro was how to hold a small talk conversation in an elevator. Like more than anything, that's what I got out of it. And I think it's those sort of skills that you need more than say the actual like say marketing skills that would be expected from me. I think it's the sort of the social skills that you get from it, how to be professional. That's really what you get from it. That's what I got from it anyway.
Yeah, no, and it's a good point to mention, because often when people, and I know there's a couple people watching now, when you're looking or you're reading through a prospectus or you're even come to an open day, sometimes you always don't get the full sense. Now we do our best obviously to give that sense, but sometimes you don't get the full sense of the range of opportunities and intra. For those that don't or aren't aware, what intra is, essentially it's just a unit within DCU that supports people that to get work placement during their program. So that's what we're talking about, I guess, that practical exposure. And again, this is while Ciaran and all the other students are still studying, and they come back, then they finish their degree program with a little bit more, I guess, real world experience. So I do want to talk about the current postgrad that you're in off the back of marketing. But before that, I just want to talk a little bit around why, as to, so some people across the board, not necessarily you, but some people might choose a postgrad to further specialize in an area. Some people might be unsure, but this gives them a year or 2 years maybe to figure that out. For you, why, I guess, postgrad, and why the postgrad that you're in?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people come out of degrees, and a lot of bachelors these days, it's almost expected that you would have to do sort of a master's afterwards, especially because they might not be career focused. While the degree that I did is very career focused, you don't need to do a master's afterwards. And the majority of my classmates have gone on and are working straight away. So if there's anyone watching who is interested in the Mint bachelor's degree level 8, and thinks, oh, I'm going to have to do a master's after that, that's 10 grand on top of the already, what is it, 12 grand I'm going to have to pay throughout the years. Like, you don't have to go on and do a master's. It's not a requirement. For me, what made me want to do it was just, basically, I was just like, it was around, I'd say, March, April this year. We had just gone into lockdown, and I was just looking at the news. I was looking at how everyone was saying the economy is going to go into a crisis, new recession. And I was just stressed with final year. So I thought the best thing I could do is give the economy some time to recover, and also upskill during that time and do something I want to do. I mean, I'm doing this year, and in the long run, it means that I'll be paid more, I'll get more job opportunities, I look more attractive to potential employers. So for me, it was kind of just that thing of making myself look better to the people who are going to be giving me jobs, and kind of learning more, mastering my craft a bit more, and just better understanding marketing as a whole, specifically digital marketing, which is the course I decided to study, the Masters in Science in Digital Marketing in DCU. I thought it was kind of the next step on top of Mint. I mean, Mint has such like a strong focus on digital marketing already as it is, but I thought the Masters would kind of just push me even that bit further.
And out of interest, did your third year undergraduate work placement cross over into the digital space to give you a sense of, maybe now that you're at this particular juncture, to go, actually, maybe digital marketing might be for me? Or did you get that exposure during your placement?
Not really, to be honest. My placement was not really digital marketing focused. It was more, it wasn't so much towards, say, customers. It was, so my intro was actually internal communications. So I was like doing marketing, but my target audience essentially was the employees in ESB, which there's thousands spread across the country. So it's like you are marketing to thousands of people, and you're basically just communicating changes and stuff to them. And a lot of that was through digital means. I mean, when they're spread across the whole country like they are, we had like internal social media that we communicated through and stuff. But for me, it was more so, before I had decided what I wanted to do and whether or not I wanted to do a master's, I was looking at jobs on LinkedIn, and the majority of sort of like modern day marketing jobs were digital marketing roles. And I just thought that if I want to do stuff like this, and I want to have a better chance of getting jobs like that, then I can take this opportunity to upskill and just really make myself look more employable to them.
So your current then, the MSc in digital marketing, is a 1 or a 2 year program?
It's 1 year.
It's a 1 year program, 1 year full time.
Yeah.
So for those that are listening and watching, and maybe, I might like to do that in a couple of years in terms of the space, digital marketing, that is MSc in digital marketing. Give people a sense of what's involved, regards hours, regards subjects, modules that you cover, etc.
Yeah. So usually we would have, I would say, around 10 hours per week of lectures. Every few weeks then we have extra modules, so we could be bumped up to say maybe like 16 hours. But it kind of just depends week by week what classes are on. While an undergrad is more so structured in the sense that you always know the amount of hours you're going to have every week. For my master's anyway, you kind of just know the week before what extra classes you're going to have. And I mean, we don't mind this because you are told like right away when you're thinking of doing a master's and you look into it, you're told straight away that like you have to give all your time to this. You really have to be committed to it. And it's a lot of commitment, but it is worth it in the long run, or I hope it will be anyway. So yeah, it ranges from about 10 hours to 16 hours. The modules we do then would include, say like digital marketing mechanics, digital advertising. We touch on data analytics as well, because that's such an important part of digital marketing, how we can sort of tailor marketing towards people's preferences on social media and on the internet. And we also touch on, say, web design as well. So we get to learn a broad scope, but also it is just very tailored to digital marketing. That's the thing about masters as well. They're going to be a lot more tailored towards one topic than your undergrad would be, where you would maybe learn a variety of different things and then maybe specialize. The masters is more so, you want to do digital marketing, you want to study it, you want a job within that field. So you're committing to that.
You mentioned a little bit around kind of differences between undergrad and postgrad, kind of what's expected and so on. But now that you're sitting in week 5, I think, or week 5 of 10, now that you're sitting here now in your postgrad and haven't had 4 years undergrad, other differences, main differences so far you've experienced?
Well, it's hard to really tell what the difference is. It's hard to tell what's different because it's a master's and what's different because we're in a global pandemic. I mean, I don't know if the case was different. I don't know if I would say be out having a social life. I assume I wouldn't be because the workload is so heavy, but I suppose I'll never know because I never really had that experience of doing lectures from home the whole time. So in terms of workload, so far now, we're only 5 weeks into it. It would be just a small step above what final year was for me. And final year was very intense as it is. And this is intense too, but it's manageable. And you kind of, going into it what you signed up for. But in terms of the difference between undergrad, it is just that kind of one step above.
Just to remind people that are watching, there is a Q&A function on the screen. If you have a question as we're talking or you want to ask something a little bit further, please do so. I won't read out your name, so don't worry. And we are here for another 15 or so minutes, and then we will wrap up and then speak to our second guest, Orla. So and that's a very valid point. So currently you're doing your lectures online. Give people a sense of, say, DCU Loop and maybe some of the platform and interaction space that you would have now currently as a student.
Yeah, so we, the forms of communication we're using at the moment is really different than when we were an undergrad. So on top of just, say, emails or Loop communication, we also communicate through Slack, which is basically just a website that allows everyone in the course and the lecturers to sort of ask questions so everyone can see them. And that's really helpful. There's a lot of resources that get put up there. If you have a question that regards the whole class, you can put it up there and everyone can see the lecturer's answer. The rest of it, to be honest, there's not too much of a difference between online lectures and in-person lectures, except you can like turn off your camera if you want and be invisible to the class. But we would be very much inclined to turn on our cameras and stuff. But they're still teaching the same stuff, you're still getting the same out of it. The only difference is, instead of doing a half an hour commute in the morning, you do a 2-minute commute to whatever room you're attending the lectures through. So in that sense, like, there really isn't too much of a difference at all. And I don't feel like I'm getting less than I would be if I was on campus.
Yeah, and it makes sense. And I guess the staff, and I was a student in DCU and an undergrad and a postgrad student in DCU. And again, in my experience, that similar, I guess, world-class kind of teaching, academic exposure experience, irrespective of if it's in the physical environment as such or in the online environment. And obviously we'll hopefully get back to the physical at some point. So if I could just press pause, because I don't know, the people that are watching here, I don't know if they're coming into potentially undergrad and then into postgrad, or maybe they're looking at postgrad. But I just want to take the opportunity maybe to ask about undergrad just for a moment, with regards looking back. And I've asked all the guests and all the students the last few weeks this or a similar question. Looking back, anything you do differently, be it coming in, be it in the course, particularly now at undergrad for the moment?
Anything I do differently? I don't know. I always do say the one thing I would do differently is, I did get very involved socially throughout my time in DCU, but I didn't in first year. It took me a while, because I was very sort of just nervous. I always thought that getting involved in, say, clubs and societies in first year, that they're already established, there's already friendships established, that they won't be welcoming to first year students. And I look back now and I look at the societies that I would be somewhat involved with, and I look at how welcoming they are to first years. And I wish I could go back and say to first year me that, no, go in there, like, run for first year rep for these societies if you want to. Like, they're so welcoming, the people are so nice. So I suppose that is the one thing I change. But at the same time, by the time second year came around, I kind of pushed myself outside of my comfort zone more. So, I got there in the end.
Could I touch on the supports part for the moment? Because whether it's myself and my colleagues in student recruitment, or whether it's student support and development, when you're a current student, and I guess maybe just to touch on this for a moment for those now that are listening, but maybe to get your own insights or your own experience. When you're looking, so your prospective students, we, in terms of my department and our department, are here to help. But that when you are a student, there's plenty of supports there, be it clubs and societies, be it well-being, financial, and so on. Any further insight into that space? So clubs and societies is obviously a massive part, getting involved, personal development, broadening horizons, your networks, opportunities, all sorts of different things. Yeah. But maybe to touch on, or even facilities to that point, doesn't have to be supports, but give people a sense of maybe some of the other supports, facilities that are there outside of the classroom, undergraduate and postgraduate, I guess, as well.
So I suppose the first thing that kind of comes to my head, away from, say, like the clubs and societies social part of it, would just be, I always found it really hard to, like, study and work from home, which obviously I have no choice in doing now, but the library was like my like go-to place. It was like my first home, and my home was my second home, especially in first, second and final year, up until we went into the lockdown. And in, say, first and second year, my laptop just was awful, like it was trash. So they had like the laptop rental scheme in the library, and they had the hundreds of computers you can work off of. So just that support from an academic side is amazing. Outside of that, say, the support you can get from say clubs and societies as well. So I think a lot of people think maybe like clubs and societies, they might just be the fun side, which they are, but also there's a lot of, especially if you are going in to do, say, a business type of degree, there's a lot of societies such as Enactus, where you are working to, like, basically start up a startup company, and that, like, would aid in say, like, communities. And doing this stuff and being on the committees for these things, they really help your CV in the long run. So you're not just getting your experience from the classroom, you're also building a CV and building networks from outside the classroom, on top of also building a social life with that. So you kind of just get everything blended together into one. if you're doing the extracurricular stuff outside the classroom, and it's a great opportunity.
I just want to reflect back. We have about 10 minutes left. And again, just a reminder, if you have a question as we're talking in the last couple of minutes, just pop it in there. As I said, it's anonymous. I just want to reflect back, or maybe jump back to the postgraduate side of things. So you mentioned already employability being more attractive in terms of the job and your future career and so on. Just to mention, and you may or may not have thoughts on this, but just to mention for those that are listening, there is a DCU career service. So be that undergraduate or postgraduate, there is many links, established links with organizations and companies, and there's a unit, or there's a couple of staff members that are employed by DCU in order to support people in terms of transition. Have you used the career service? And if so, your experience or your exposure to that so far?
So I would have used the career service a good bit there in final year before I had decided to do a master's, because it is the sort of the one place where you can get all the information on all the graduate programs that are happening. And for a lot of people finishing their degrees, graduate programs are the way to go. Because you do get to learn so much through them. Now, they're not for everyone, but it is just a host for endless lists of graduate programs that are taking on students, as well as that they have links to jobs abroad. So if you wanted to work outside of Ireland, they also have a lot of resources to help you with that. If I went to them just to like have a look at my CV, I did that before Intra, just to make sure that what I am giving employers is something that they want to see. So having the career service there is really, really helpful. And I do think a lot of people don't know about it. And I mean, it's there to be used and it's there to get the most out of it. So if anyone is watching, and they even want just advice on how to improve their CV, then 100% get in touch with the career service.
And sometimes it's often as you mentioned earlier on, those smaller things that the prospectus mightn't necessarily tell you about or certainly jump off the page to you. And just to your career service point, the head of the career service, Yvonne McLaughlin, and the rest of her team are often fantastic, as well as Claire Bone and student support and various other club and societies activities. We have about 5 minutes left. I just want to kind of finish on or in and around the space of, so you are an undergraduate student, so maybe coming across, or you're in the business school, so coming across information about the MSc in digital marketing wasn't too far away as such, but did you go anywhere else to get more information? Was it readily available? And what did you access in terms of trying to get more information on the MSc?
Yeah, 100%. So I would have known that it existed just through being in the business school, but I wouldn't have known an awful lot about the course itself. And when you're committing to a master's that is so career focused, you're basically saying, listen, I want to do this with my career for a long time. So you don't want to just jump into the deep end and not know what you're getting into. So I think it's so important that there is so much information on the postgrad courses, and thankfully on the DCU website is where I did get the majority of my information. It is really helpful. It tells you, it just breaks down even all the modules. It breaks down what's expected of you, the amount of workload that you're expected to put in. And as well, I also talked to previous students. So I knew previous, or someone who was studying it at the time. She would have graduated last year. She was actually a student ambassador, and she would have given me a lot of information. And again, you're told on the website, you're told when you're talking to the course chairs, you're told when you're talking to current and previous students that it is going to be a difficult time. It is going to be a lot of work, but it's going to absolutely be worth it. And I think no matter where you go to look for information, you're going to be told that, and you're going to be told, well, the DC website at least is where I got my information, was really helpful in just telling me the complete breakdown of it and exactly what is expected of me.
Yeah, and it might be a good point just to mention the DC website obviously is there, and there's lots of modules. You can go into much detail on it, but there is, particularly on the undergraduate, but also postgrad, there's blogs and there's podcasts. There's these conversations we're having each week. There's social media takeovers, a couple other things that I mentioned at the start, at the top of the conversation as well. So for those that maybe get or consume information or like to visit different places, we have, or hopefully have, a range or a suite of options there available. And also we're always at student help at dcu.ie. So if anyone feels like an email is for them, myself and my colleagues will be on the back end of that at all times. We have a quick, I'm just looking at my questions here, because the quick fire question round is always the way to finish. And there's a couple of people with 3 out of 3, so there's no pressure.
Okay, I'm not making any promises.
No, well, these ones you'll be all right. Well, this is week 5, so I am running out of questions, to be honest. And your experience, you'll get them all. I see Orla coming into the room. So I just got to mention, before we jump into the quick fire question, there is a couple of minutes between now and just doing these questions. If you have our last minute question for Ciaran, pop it in and we can get to it before the time is out. So because you're first up, you get to choose any 3 of the questions. So between 1 and 6, give me 3 numbers and we'll go with them.
Let's go 2, 4, 6.
2, 4, and 6. So these are easy. You should be getting these. So they're kind of short in a sense of they're kind of true or false ones. But
okay.
The DCU virtual open days are taking place Friday the 20th and Saturday the 21st of November in a couple of short weeks. True or false?
I'm gonna go for true on that one.
True, well done. Ding ding, 1 out of 1. Number 4, as I would said, yeah. So last week there was a big announcement which some people mightn't have been aware of. DCU was named the Sunday Times University of the Year 2020-2021. True or false?
True.
True, very good.
True.
2 out of 2. And last one, I think you should get this because I think you're on it, but it is possible for the students, if they go to dcu.ie/CAO, to click on one of the resource that we have there and chat directly to a student. True or false?
That is true.
True. Very good. 3 out of 3.
Not an awful lot of variety in those answers there, Jonny.
No, well, as I said, I am running out. I'll just be very transparent. I'm running out of hard questions and questions in general, to be honest. So you might give me a shout if you have any better ones. I'm conscious of time and we're nearly at the half an hour mark, and I see Orla coming into the room as well. So if there's no last minute questions, Ciaran, I just want to thank you for your time.
Thank you,
to remind people as well that just before I let you go, remind people as well that if you do have something, you think of something, be it from the Mint side of it, so the marketing undergrad that Ciaran's in, or indeed the MSc in digital marketing, you'll always get us, as I said, at student help at dcu.ie. If you have any further questions, you can reach us there. Ciaran, thank you very much. Hopefully we'll see you soon.
Thank you, Jonny. See you soon. Good
luck. No problem. Thanks, Ciaran. Just before I do that, just a reminder to tell people that we have lots of resources online. So every Wednesday from 4 to 5, indeed, here we are with a live conversation. But we also have 3 social media takeovers every week. We also have blogs, we have podcasts, we have course webinars, webinar videos, and we have our virtual open days coming up on November 20th and 21st. So there's so many ways to get in touch, find out a little bit more. So without further ado, because I'm already a minute over, I'm going to pull Orla into the main room. How are you?
Not too bad. How are you?
Things are really good. Thanks for I'm a minute over, so I'm behind it a small bit, but Ciaran never stops talking. I know, Ciaran never stops talking. We'll get into a little bit about undergrad because I see a couple of people watching. We'll get into then, because this week is kind of a postgraduate focus session, so we'll obviously talk about that, and we'll hopefully talk a little bit around maybe transition from one to the other and a couple of other things outside the classroom. Firstly, how are you? How's the last couple of weeks been and how are you keeping?
I'm good. The last few weeks have been stressful. I'm obviously the first few weeks into my master's now, and I'm doing my FE1 exams starting on Friday. So very busy, but coming up to the last few weeks of the crazy stress now at the minute.
So handy enough day in the life for you, because you're always on top of things, to be fair to you.
Yeah.
So in context of the postgraduate conversation today, maybe give those watching or listening a bit of a sense. And actually, before you do that, just want to remind people there's a Q&A function on the screen. If you have a question as we're going, feel free to pop it in there. It's anonymous. I won't read out your name. There's no problem. Pop it in there and we'll get to it. So we'll hopefully make this interactive in terms of people wanting to ask a couple of questions. But maybe, let's go with reverse it a little bit or look back a little bit in terms of the undergrad that you did. And then we'll talk a little bit around the current postgrad opportunity.
Yeah. So I started in 2016 and I started in law and society, and I've just graduated now, just the summer just gone. So I obviously did 4 years. I did my intra in Arthur Cox, and then in March, obviously, of last year, we all went home, didn't go back to campus. And then I wasn't really sure what I was going to do Was I just going to go in and do my FE1s? I obviously couldn't travel this year. You couldn't even really work this year. It was a bit of a mess. And then we were told about the opportunity to apply for the Masters in Law, or the LLM. And in conjunction with that, we could apply for the Scott Scholarship. So that was an unbelievable opportunity that came from Arthur Cox. So that's a €12,000 scholarship that covers your fees and a stipend for the year. So I was lucky enough to be awarded that. So that's how I'm on my master's this year.
Congrats. And I know we were speaking a good while ago. I think it's richly deserved, because to be fair to yourself, you're always, as I said, on top of your things, but you're also working extremely hard. So congrats. For those that are watching, obviously it's another thing that might necessarily jump off the prospectus page or the site online or whatever, but just, I guess, to be aware, there is other supports, and as your own highlights there, other scholarships and opportunities to avail of. So maybe, and again, this is a very short conversation, maybe let's quickly jog across then to the current postgraduate space that you're in, and we'll explore that maybe for the next couple of minutes.
Mm-hmm. So I am doing, as I said, the LLM, which is a general master's in law. So some masters allow you to specialize maybe in corporate law or in criminal law, but mine is quite general. So for this semester, I'm focusing on legal research, public policy, and political relations, and law, ethics, and the person. So these are subjects that I wouldn't have had the opportunities to study for my undergrad. So this just gives me like an even wider scope of the law and allows me to develop my own research skills. And then next semester, I'll get to choose the likes of climate change law. I think there's human rights law with the focus on like migration and refugees. So all the subjects are really, really up to date. They kind of change every year and even every semester. So as the law is changing in the real world, the law is changing in DCU, and we're kept up to date academically. And this master's is really geared towards those who want to actually pursue law as a career. So I know myself anyway, I want to be a solicitor. So the research side of this will really help me when I go to Blackhall and when I start my training contract.
Give us, if you can, a sense, and specifically around the law side of things, and we could talk about this in all the other 70 odd undergraduate courses and obviously postgrad as well. Give us a sense of the academic side of it in terms of the teaching, in my opinion, the excellent teaching in your space. Give us a sense of some of, not necessarily names, but just just a general sense of that side of things.
So this year it's a little bit different. Obviously it's all online, but I cannot speak highly enough of the lectures this year. So the lectures are brilliant every year, but this year they've really gone above and beyond. So I have 3 modules this semester. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and days in advance of each lecture, we're given all the readings. Everything is sent to us. We don't have to find anything, which we often would have had to do. We would have had to go to the library. That's no big deal, but obviously now we can't access the library. So to have the materials there, that cuts down all the stress. It means we know exactly what we need to learn, exactly what we need to have covered. And the lecturers are recording the lectures. So if you miss it, if you're unwell, like everyone's internet's dropping left, right, and center lately. So it means you can come back and pick it up an hour later if you need to. But yeah, I really cannot say enough about the lectures this year. They're fantastic.
And just to give people a sense of, for those that might be unfamiliar with the teaching environment as such, there's a loop system, or it's like an internal workspace, if you like, where I don't know if yourselves are using it directly or maybe using another platform. There's an internal system where all your classes are put up, and there's interactive quizzes, and you can have conversations, and you can chat as well as email and everything else. So I guess just to bear that in mind for those listening and watching, there is, as I said, an in-house kind of system that's there that you plug directly into. Could I talk a little bit, because I'm assuming in your space you need to be organized, you'll need to be disciplined, and you need to be on top of your things, your research, your own readings, etc., as well as assignments. Can I talk a little bit around that in the context of, and you mentioned already the library and the teaching assistance that is there. Anything else that you've availed of, and even in your undergrad, I guess, as well, but anything else you've availed of as such supports or different facilities that DCU would have on offer?
When I remember one of the biggest supports I used was the academic writing. So when I was in kind of 5th and 6th year, I loved writing. I loved English. So I went in and thought, sure, I know how to write. I have a good grasp of language. I'll be fine. And then was very rudely awakened when I figured out that academic writing isn't quite the same as the descriptive storytelling writing that you might have done for your Leaving Cert. So I found the academic writing workshops and the citation workshops as well in the library to be so, so helpful. And these are like really easy marks that you can pick up in assignments and in exams. So for any like first years coming into college, make use of those. Like they're absolutely brilliant. And then they'll set you up for the rest of your 3 or 4 years in college. I probably I used a lot, like I was in the library the whole time, and myself and my friends would have used study groups and booked some of the kind of study rooms in the library, and that was so helpful to give us a definite space and a definite time frame that we could get work done, especially for projects or coming up to deadlines and stuff. And working in a group meant that we could share the workload, that if there was something one of us didn't understand, we could break it down and then everyone was up to date.
And I guess that probably from a DCU side of it, things are designed specifically in such a way. So if you're given a certain assignment, this is the global point really in terms of university life. If you're given a certain assignment, you're expected to have the necessary resources or facilities to kind of complement. In your case, you're obviously talking about the writing center and the library, and there's teaching assistants, but there's many other things that is in place or is there. I want to talk a little bit around clubs and societies, because in a very different way, kind of that complements and gives you a bit of a release valve or outside the class in general. So I will touch on that in a couple of minutes as well, but maybe a little bit more around the program. And I know you mentioned a small bit about it already, but a little bit more around the program for those tuning in. So things like, if you can quantify it, that is hours a week, both in class or online in class, independent learning, things like many's in your class, and we'll talk about careers and a couple other things in a moment, but give a sense of the program in that way.
So this semester I have 6 hours a week of lectures. So I have 2 hours per subject and then 3 subjects. And mine are Monday, Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So I like that they're kind of the start of the week, and then I have 4 days at the end where I can just kind of get like large blocks of work done. And then I think there's 75 in the LLM this year, which is almost double what would normally be in it. But that's because we're online this year. So next year it could go back down to 30. They might keep it the same. But in each module, then there's one module, I think there's 13 of us. And then there's another module where there's 35. So it really depends on the module. But independent learning then is probably maybe 3 to 5 hours of reading per class per week, and then depends on what assignments you have. So we're kind of coming up to the middle of the semester now, so there is a couple of assignments going to be due in the next couple of weeks, so you're talking probably another 3 or 4 hours each week on those assignments as well. So I can't really do maths, but like probably between 20 and 30 hours a week you'd be studying, but like that seems like a lot, but we don't have to commute in and out. We're not waiting outside lecture rooms. We're not waiting on buses. So yes, it's very kind of concise amount of work, but you're getting it done. You've no distractions. And like you still have time for your Netflix and whatever else you can do during lockdown.
We mentioned a little bit around kind of the diligence and the discipline and the organization. Is there anything that, and maybe this wasn't the case, but maybe even from your friends, that now that you're looking back, and probably into undergrad more so, but maybe now it's applicable, that you would maybe go, I wish I had did a little bit more of that, or I wish I was on top of that a little bit more? Did anything strike you coming into either undergrad or even the crossover from undergrad to postgrad?
I think the biggest thing for me was, as I kind of came towards the end of my degree, was realizing that you don't have to read every single page of every single judgment and every single book. You will not physically be able to do that, even if you really want to. So find out and prioritize the important readings and make your notes on them. It's easy to say make your notes as you go. Sometimes life gets in the way, but if you can, keep on top of your notes, and that makes your life so much easier, especially when the exams are in January. You don't want to be sitting down kind of Christmas week, opening the book for the first time. But one of the best things to do is to print off the exam papers week 1 or week 2. Then you know exactly what the exam focus is for each subject. There's only so many ways questions can be asked, and actually find out what the question words mean. So find out the difference between explain, describe, criticize, critically analyze. That's where you'll pick up marks if you can specifically answer the questions. So I think if I knew that in first year, I would have been a lot less stressed. I would have been able to kind of cut down a huge amount of my workload, because if you know exactly what you have to focus on, then you've half the work done already.
Makes complete sense. So to maybe paraphrase, start with the end in mind, go to the exam papers, and they're still, I'm going to say still, I was an undergrad in DCU and they were available to me. Exam papers are still available for you to access and to get.
Yep, they're all on the website. If you Google DCU exam papers, type in your course code, and they're all there.
Yeah, and it's probably that, and even with Ciaran in the last conversation, we were talking about those kind of things that aren't necessarily called out as such, or aren't as explicit, and that's probably one of them, and such a key kind of bit of learning that people now, and those that are listening may be going into undergrad and possibly looking at postgrad down the road, or maybe some people are actually at a juncture now where postgrad is very much on the horizon for them. Anything else? I want to leave space there because that stuff is so rich. Anything else looking back you'd change, or maybe if you had knowledge of or more knowledge of?
It's really important to know that you're not alone in, it's such a big, like, I don't want to say it's a massive jump coming from secondary school to college, because that makes it sound really scary. It's not. It's exciting. Like, it's a good scary, but know that you're not alone. So if there's the first week, you're not going to have a clue of some of the words that are being thrown at you, but that's normal. Like, everybody gets that. Everybody has that feeling. But find a couple of people who maybe are in the same boat as you, get a study group together, even if it's an hour a week, and you say, okay, we're going to look at this topic. And even if you just get the key definitions, or for us, we would need to know what a judge said in a particular judgment and how that applied then to subsequent judgments. If you know that much, and if you have people you can bounce ideas off, people, even if you have someone who you can just go and say, look, this week's been really tough, I need to just vent, that's so important. And that would break down a lot of the barriers for you, especially coming up towards exam time. And it's probably even more important now at the minute, when we are all at home. You might feel a bit more isolated, but to reach out to the mental health services in DCU, they're just a fantastic bunch of people. They're there to help the students. Like, that's what they want to do. There's none of them want anything more than to make sure that we're all okay. So reach out to anybody and make sure you get the help, whether it's academically, if you're feeling sick, if you're feeling just run down, there's people there to help you.
And maybe just to expand or to explore that a little bit more, and that's so true, by the way, in terms of sports, if and when you decide to come to DCU. But I guess if you're looking at DCU or a prospective student, and some of those that are listening or watching this back when it's put up online might be interested in coming to DCU, and myself and my colleagues, that's our job essentially, is to help you fill in the gaps. So be it you want to talk to a student, or Orla or Ciaran that was talking to us last, or you want to know what a term means, or whatever it may be. So it's not just exclusively, I guess, to point that out. It is if you're interested in coming as well. There's a question that came in, and thanks for the question. If there's any more, keep them coming in. Is there any specific Leaving Cert subjects that you need to do for your law course? No,
there isn't. A lot of people think you need a language. You don't. You just need to meet the actual grade requirements. And I think that could just be in English, Irish, and maths if you sit Irish. But no, there's no specific subjects. So whatever you enjoy at Leaving Cert, do that.
Thanks, Emil, and thank you for the question. Keep them coming in. As I said, they're anonymous, so you can put it to Orla if she can answer. If not, I'll try to do my best to answer it. I want to talk a little bit around careers and the direction not only you're going or want to go, but maybe just some of the options that are there in terms of the master's program that you're doing. So you already mentioned you have a particular area in mind that you want to go down. So maybe let's explore that a little bit in terms of what you're hoping to do. And then maybe in terms of friends or other people in your class or other people that from your undergraduate, etc., maybe some of the options that they've gone on to or can go on to.
Yeah. So I personally want to become a solicitor. So that's why I'm doing this master's and doing the FE1s. So the FE1s are 8 law subjects. They're kind of the core law subjects that you'll have to study regardless of whether you want to be a solicitor or not. and they're the entrance exams to Blackhall Place. So once you've done your law degree, you can do your FE1s. And then if you've passed all your FE1s, you go to Blackhall and you start your training contract. So your training contract usually is about 2.5 years, and you do that in a law firm. So I am going to William Fry in 2022. So you know quite far in advance kind of where you're going. So you can get a training contract through a summer internship or what's called the milk rounds. So milk rounds are basically you send in your application, and if you're called for an interview and you're successful, then you'll be given a contract. So I was lucky enough in the sense that I knew I always wanted to be a solicitor, so I didn't really have to do too much searching. But then after I did intra in third year and I went to Arthur Cox, I knew for certain that that's what I wanted to do. I just loved the work. I loved the environment I was working in. So that really sealed the deal for me. But I have some friends who are in doing the King's Inns at the minute, so they want to be barristers. So they did their entrance exams just in the summer, and now they've started. I have some friends who are teaching assistants back in DCU, teaching law and assisting some of the lecturers. I have some friends who have gone on to do journalism, masters in journalism, company secretarial. So that's a really big area that it kind of gets overlooked because it doesn't sound as glamorous as being a solicitor, but there's so many opportunities for company secretarial on the intra program, and you can basically travel anywhere in the world if you are a company secretary, and it's such a brilliant option. With law, you can kind of go into anything. Like a lot go into obviously the traditional law fields, but they go into business as well, journalism, media. You can go into in-house. You can pretty much do whatever you want.
Yeah, and it's often something that, and even just in my own specific journey or experience, I'm a sports science and health undergraduate. I graduated at DCU and went off into an MSc in organizational behavior and psychology. So people might think, and maybe they're listening here with something particular in mind, but maybe as you're talking as well, it could just broaden people's, options arise. And so I guess it's an important thing to note. I don't want to go by, and I know you have mentioned a couple of times with regards to the intra work placement, the value of that, where you currently are now as a result of assistance. Maybe for those that are not overly familiar with intra, and I'll just briefly intro what it is, and then maybe if you want to talk more about it. But the intra work placement is an integral part of all DCU degree, or well, not every single DCU degree, but there's a certain level of practical exposure that you get. The intra work placement is in a lot of our courses. So to your particular experience and example, we might just explore that for a moment to give people a full sense, because it's important to acknowledge not only what you get and the exposure and the development, but also as you're currently now in your master's, the actual assistance and long-term assistance you can get as well. So a little bit around the intra side of things.
Yeah. So intra was introduced to law and society in 2018. So my class were the first class to actually get to do a legal intra placement. So we had to fill in an application form and then pick the firms that appealed to us and where we were hoping to be called for an interview for. So as I said, then I was lucky enough to be selected for Arthur Cox. So I started there in September of 2018 and I stayed there until August of 2019, just the start of August 2019. I was in two different departments. I was in corporate and litigation. And when I was in there, so I should say it's a paid placement, and that makes such a difference because that means you can pay for your bus, you can pay for your lunch, you can pay if you need to get maybe a blazer or like nice shoes or whatever. But when I was there, I was treated the same way as every other person. You don't go in and you're not treated like a child. You're not treated like, oh, this person will be here now, they'll get coffee for us. You're given actual work. Well, that was my experience. You're given actual work, you're given actual responsibility. You really do get a sense of what it would be like to work as a solicitor or work as whatever job, the office you're in or whatever. So I had the best time. The hours were long. It was tough work, but I really, really enjoyed it. And the most important thing about intra is you get a sense of whether it is something you do or do not want to do. And it's probably even more important to find out if you don't want to do it, because then you know that's one other option ticked off your list and maybe you want to focus then on some other thing. And then that really helped in my application for the masters because I had proof that I had legal experience, that I wanted to be in a law firm. And even if I didn't decide to do a legal masters and I wanted to do a marketing masters, it still would have stood to me because I have industry experience.
And these conversations are so short, so we're only getting into certain parts and then we're having to jump away. So if there is something we're talking about and you want to find out more, indeed ask another question if you want. There's an application on over here at studenthelp@dcu.ie all the time, pretty much 24/7. We pride ourselves on being very responsive in that space. So do give us a shout, because I know we're jumping around because we're just tight for time. I do want to cover, and maybe it's a good way to kind of finish or to kind of see out the conversation around outside the classroom, particularly in your area with regards, the learning and the reading and the workload in general that's involved in your space, which I would like to think is complemented by the outside the classroom activities. I know you're student ambassador and there's a couple of other things that you're involved with. Maybe give us a sense of, from your experience anyway, outside the classroom and what you can do or what you're doing outside the classroom.
So there's literally hundreds of clubs and societies in DCU. Like anything you're interested in, there's probably a club or society there for you. I love law. That's what I wanted to do. Even when I was relaxing, I wanted to do law. So I joined the Law Society, the ELSA Society, which is the European Law Students Association, and the Free Legal Advice Clinic. So these just bring all the law students and even people who don't study law but just have an interest in it together and give us a chance to meet, make connections, make friendships. You get a chance then to travel after the exams in January if you'd like to go. So I've been to Copenhagen, I've been to Amsterdam. In March, I was supposed to go to Rome for a law school with ELSA. So you've so many opportunities within DCU with those clubs and societies. And then literally they do go global, and you stay friends with these people like long after you leave DCU. So if there is something that you want to get in, like even if you just try it out for a couple of weeks, you won't regret it. Like it's so much fun.
And it is so true on the holistic development and support that's on offer academically is obviously extremely important, where people may want to go career wise, and having that is important in terms of the course opportunity. But I guess hopefully we're able to accurately describe the other opportunities that are there that you mightn't necessarily be coming directly to college for, but they come as part of the package and part of your experience. And again, we are running out of time, so if any last minute questions, do get them in. We have our quick fire questions, which I think are going to be so easy. But anyway, as I said to Ciaran, I'm running out of questions, so this week got off very, very lightly. But if there is any last minute questions, please do pop them in. We have literally about 3 minutes left, and if there is something, we're happy to cover it in that particular time. So quick fire question round. God, I'm just looking at these now. I wish I had come up with better ones. Anyway, well, actually, some of them might be tricky. So true or false? These are very simple. True or false? DCU became a university in 1989. Officially became a university in 1989.
True.
True is the answer. So we're a relatively young university in comparison to other places that are out there, but we like to think we're young and dynamic, and hopefully getting to bigger and better things all the time. Well done. Yeah, 1 out of 1. DCU currently has, as a resource, over 15 different course podcasts that are available to listen to online. True or false?
True.
True is right. You kind of hesitated there, so you didn't know the answer. 2 out of 2 nonetheless. And then lastly, DCU, in terms of resource that's available online, DCU currently offers over 40 course webinars that are available online right now.
True.
True. So that was 3 out of 3. So you and Ciaran are neck and neck. So Ciaran, he's actually gone. He's not listening, but it was a draw. Come here, there is about a minute or two left. If there is no last minute questions, all that's left is just really to thank you for your time. And before I let you go, and just to reiterate again, if there is something that those that are watching, or indeed watching this back, think they want to ask or want to know a little bit more about, I know the student ambassadors and yourself are always incredibly obliging with your time. So do give us a shout at studenthelp@dcu.ie, or just reach out in general. You'll find us on social and a couple of other places as well. But Ord, thanks a mil for your time. Always highly enjoyable having the conversation, and we hopefully will speak to you soon.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Talk to you soon.
No problem, and we'll see you soon. So just before we go and log off, it's just to remind people that we are here each and every Wednesday. So this was week 5 of 10, each and every Wednesday from 4 to 5, having live conversations. I'm very excited to announce that next week, week 6, is a graduate spotlight week where we'll be talking to 2 graduates of DCU, Connor from the engineering program and engineering side of things and where he is at the moment and what he is doing, and also Brian from our global business program that we have. So 2 very exciting guests coming up on next week's show. And just before we go, just to remind you again that there is plenty of resources online currently right now. If you go to dcu.ie/CAO, you'll get plenty of other elements that you can click into. So as I mentioned, there's podcasts, there's course webinars, there's blogs, and there's podcasts you can avail of. As I said, we're here every Wednesday from 4 to 5. There's 3 social media takeovers. We have a weekly newsletter. We have plenty of other elements you can benefit from. And then very lastly, before I say thank you for your time for joining in today, very lastly, we have our DCU Open Virtual Open Days coming up the 20th and 21st of November, where you'll be able to find out lots more information. You'll be able to talk to staff. You'll be able to talk to students. You'll be able to hear all about our clubs and societies, our sports, our facilities, our units, and our general supports that are on offer. So we have a full suite of programs available for you. And as I said, you'll get plenty more information on how to register online. It just leaves me to say thank you for joining us today. I hope it was of some value. As always, we're on email, studenthelp@dcu.ie, and we're more than happy to help anybody out. My name is Jonny Cooper. We have episode 5 just done of In Conversation With. We'll hopefully see everybody really soon in and around DCU physically at some point. Thanks for joining. I hope it was of value, and we'll see everybody really soon.